My father-in-law is Annas. He'd been serving as the high priest for all of Israel until the Romans removed him from the noble position of power. His influence remained despite not having the official position. And he did name 4 of his sons, and ultimately me, Caiaphas, as his successor. We all were Sadducees. We were successful people. We had money and power. On the religious side of things, we only accepted the books of Moses as having any true authority. But our driving force was popularity and power. Because we have money, we were more regarded by others as being better than others. We loved to show off our money. It was really impressive when we gave our offerings. We made sure everyone saw what we did. And believe me, they were impressed. And being high priest sure had its rewards. The best seats in the first serve, the best food. People would bow and listen to every word I spoke. I have power and authority. On the religious side, it was my job to perform the Jewish tasks of Jewish feasts. I even got to be the guy who went into the Holy of Holies. It was a great show. Everywhere I went, people followed. Everything I did, people were impressed. It was the best of times. Then, there was news of a man named Jesus of Nazareth. I didn't make much of him. Nothing good comes from Nazareth. I began noticing, though, that crowds began following him in the temple courtyard as well as around Galilee. He even had his own gangly group of followers. And at first I just laughed it off, but after a time his crowds began growing larger. Even at times my own temple courtyard began to fill up, not to hear me, but to hear this Jesus. Now things are getting upsetting. What made it harder to handle is when Jesus began healing and forgiving the measly, crippled, lame, deaf, and even those possessed. I worked so hard at keeping this type of filth out of my temple courtyard. And he heals them and brings them in? Really? Does he know he's messing with my kingdom, my rule, my authority? I think not. It's now my responsibility to shut him up, to show him who's boss. Well, first I tried to outsmart him. I loaded questions, but he twisted my questions back and put me in a place where I dare not answer. I then conspired with others I really didn't even like, the Pharisees, who acted like mini judges of everything Jewish. I even brought in some Herodians. I hate these guys. They just think the Romans are great. I hate the Romans. But I hate Jesus even more. So, yeah, between these 3 groups of us, we should be able to shut him up. That's when everything gets worse, right? Not only did Jesus refute all of our questions, but he made us look badly in front of everyone. Does he have any idea what I'm capable of doing? This is my temple. There's no way I'm going to let him, of all people, interfere with what I have worked so hard to accomplish. This is a point in time where everything changes. No more Mr. Nice Guy, right? Gloves come off. I will destroy this man at all costs. Just had to make sure it didn't happen during the Passover feast. Too many people in my city and my temple. Too many people are following him around. I began meeting with the entire Sanhedrin. They're like the Jewish court of authority. And I'm in charge of all 71 of us. So between all of us, we can figure this out. By figure it out, I mean kill him. I said it, kill him. I don't care what it means or how it sounds. I'm not losing everything that belongs to me. He's made my fellow Sadducees, the Pharisees, and all my other Jewish leaders look bad. No one calls us vipers and gets away with it. We've been trying to think of any angle we could find, with no success. Until Malcolmus, my servant, tells me that one of Jesus' followers named Judas was here to see us. And Judas was angry for some reason, and he told us he could bring Jesus right into our hands for a fee. Judas took 30 pieces of silver for the privilege of helping us arrest Jesus. What a fool. Let us spend 100 gold coins. So we began by gathering every soldier we could find, hundreds of them. I personally led this army down to the Kidron Valley, up to the Garden of Gethsemane. We were prepared for an all-out war. But then Jesus walks toward us and inquires who we're looking for. We knew who he was. This is our time, our moment. Oddly enough, though, there's no battle. Judas kissed Jesus and presented him to us. Other than one guy hitting my servant there with a sword, nothing much happened. We had him. It was almost over. I knew it was getting late at night, but none of us wanted to wait. We began making it all legal-ish. First, Jesus was brought before my former powerful father-in-law, Annas. He wasn't happy at all with Jesus. We set aside literally every long-held legal procedure to make sure we got the outcome we wanted. My father-in-law punched Jesus in the face, spit on him. Then it was my turn to run a courtroom trial on Jesus. After the trial began, we sought out anyone who could come up with a reason to condemn him. Yeah, it was hard to find two credible witnesses. Many had tried, but nobody succeeded. Until two guys said he talked of tearing down the temple and rebuilding it in 3 days. Their stories didn't really match up, but we didn't care. We had our conviction. He was a rebel. Even with that, I yelled at him and spat at him and asked if he is as he claimed to be, the Son of God. And he didn't deny it. Now we have a better case. Jesus violated the books of Moses. Now we really had him. We can tell the Jews that he claimed to be God, and we tell the Romans he was planning a revolt. So one last step. Because we, the Jews, did not want to be unclean before the Passover, and technically were not allowed to crucify anyone, we needed Pontius Pilate to agree to the death of Jesus. It was a little harder than we thought. Pilate didn't think Jesus was a threat, but we did know that he was a bit of a pushover, and so we manipulated Pilate by telling him he was no friend of Rome if he showed weakness. That worked pretty well. We had one close call when Pilate sent Jesus to be seen by Herod, who happened to be in town during the Passover. Herod thought Jesus was amazing, and he just wanted him to perform some miracles for him. Lucky for us, Jesus kept his mouth shut, and Herod sent him back to Pilate. Pilate continued to be that, pushover that we knew he was. Pilate thought that he would be satisfied by talking to Jesus and having him whipped and beaten. He even mocked Jesus by putting him in a purple kingly robe on him. Pilate thought seeing Jesus beaten and bloody would work. Yes, blood was pouring from his head, his face. His wounds were gushing with blood. It wasn't enough for us. We wanted crucifixion. We wanted Jesus to die an even more brutal death. We even went so far as to claim his blood on us and our children. We got what we wanted. And he was on his way to the cross. The Romans took over from here and took him to a well-known place we called Golgotha. Many were crucified here, but on this day, it was like no other. Jesus' crucifixion brought more attention than we thought. Many of his followers were present, crying and carrying on about all that. To me, this was a victory. My kingdom and my temple and my authority was back. I showed him and all of Israel just who was in charge. And I did. My last words to Jesus were mocking words. I and my fellow priests yelled to everyone to look at Jesus and see if he would allow a prophet of old, or maybe an angel, or if he was God, as he said he was, just come off the cross. This is the moment everything changed. Jesus responded by saying, it's finished. And he committed himself to God. And the world went dark, no sun, no light. And the earthquakes began to happen. It seemed like all hell broke loose. In our shock, we were interrupted by some temple workers who ran to tell me that the veil of the Holy of Holies was torn in two, from top to bottom. It was about 3 hours of absolute chaos before it became light again, and all of Jerusalem was in an uproar. People ran everywhere. Even Roman soldiers were crying at the cross of Jesus. Everything was not as I wanted it to be. I gathered what of the Sanhedrin I could find. It became apparent that even though we killed Jesus, some of our own decided to leave our safe and powerful group and follow a dead Jesus. That Passover was like none other. And many of us sacrificed lambs, as we always did, not recognizing that the Lamb of God was just crucified. I even claimed his blood on me and my children just hours ago. I'd been thinking about how to settle down the city and get back to my position of power and authority. And that day, some Roman guard informed me that Jesus' grave was empty. Pilate had even let us set Roman soldiers to seal and guard the grave. But despite everything I had tried, I failed. I could not silence Jesus. I could not kill him. I spent the next few years trying to silence what had happened, but I failed. We could not stop what we had begun. Not many weeks later, his followers began changing the world. His kingdom grew, and his authority and his power changed the world. I saw his followers meeting, worshiping, giving, helping the poor. His kingdom can't seem to be stopped. His power seems to be endless. And his mission is changing lives even thousands of years later. As for me, now you witness the sum results of my life, lost chasing power and authority. My legacy, you see now, sits in a museum where people walk by and just observe. My name is spoken. Everyone gasps at what I've done. I chased for power and caught foolishness. I lived and became the most impressive person I could be, but died knowing I was responsible for killing the King of Kings. I lost everything I thought I could hold on to. My search for power proved my weakness. What I attempted to claim as my own belonged to Jesus the entire time. What I believed to be my authority was never mine to claim. I lost everything that mattered. I literally looked at Jesus face to face, and I hit him, and I spit on him. I killed him.